I get the feeling the Seahawks are going to do something before the trade deadline. You just have to look at their history. Ernest Jones a year ago, Leonard Williams the year before. We're living in a different time with the NFL. We get to see a lot more trades before the deadline than we did in the past. And the Seahawks have been at the forefront of that. So I sat down today to do an article just to think, who could they trade for? And I went through all of the different rosters and looked at different options. And nobody really stood out. And I'm seeing all of the names that are getting thrown out there. But, I could run through every single one of the names and I could waste time in this video running through all of the names saying, yeah, but it's not likely because of this or it's not likely because of that. And there was just one player who stood out to me. And I never considered it. And it's Maxx Crosby with the Raiders. And the reason that I didn't consider it in the past is because he only signed a new contract with the Raiders on March the 5th. And when he signed that contract, like most people, I just assumed, well, that's it. He signed a new deal. He's going to be a Raider for life. He's committed to the team. And then I looked at the contract, and the contract suggests the total opposite. So, for example, when an established elite player like Maxx Crosby signs a new contract, typically it's very difficult to then get out of that contract because of the commitment. So let's look at Myles Garrett's deal with the Browns. The Browns would take on a $68 million dead cap hit for 2026 if they traded him tomorrow. And it would cost them $20 million in dead cap hit this year. So you're talking $88 million in dead money for the Browns to trade Myles Garrett. He ain't going anywhere. He is fully committed to the Browns. They cannot move him even if they wanted to. The finances within that, they'd have to get an obscene package to accept giving away nearly $100 million just to part with an elite player. So Myles Garrett is completely committed to the Browns. If the Raiders traded Maxx Crosby tomorrow, it would cost them $5 million next year and $5 million this year. $10 million total in dead cap money. That's it. And when I saw that, I thought, that contract he signed on March the 5th was nothing but window dressing. That was a team and a player coming together. And there'd been all of the talk about Myles Garrett wanting to be traded, and Maxx Crosby had done a podcast saying he kind of sympathized with Myles Garrett and that he wanted to win as well. He was kind of flirting with the idea that he might want to be traded too. And then they appointed Pete Carroll, and there was one of Carroll's first things that he said was about he's not here to do like a long-term project. He wanted to win quite quickly. And I think that they did this deal with Maxx Crosby to galvanize the fan base, to create excitement, to make it seem like everyone's pulling in the same direction, that Crosby was committing to the direction of the franchise and that they were going to move forward. The reality of this deal is that everybody's keeping their options open. It looks like Maxx Crosby has gone to the Raiders and said, yeah, do you know what? I will make that commitment with you and we'll be able to present this as like we're all pulling in the same direction. But actually what I want is the flexibility to be traded and be traded maybe even this year or next year if that's the way I want it to go. And the team have seemingly said, okay, we accept that we are not going to stand in your way, that we will take that chance, that we will have you committed to a new deal for 2029 until 2029, but that there may come a time when you want to be dealt, and we are accepting of that. And we perhaps see that there'd be some benefit if this season doesn't go right according to plan, then maybe we want those assets. Maybe we want the ability to trade you. And that contract is easily tradable. And I just never thought for a second that it would be structured this way. It is saying he is available. And I think with the Raiders playing the Titans this weekend, if they lose to the Titans and go to 1-5, the Raiders have got to start thinking more long-term. They've got to think about what the future looks like. And Maxx Crosby, I keep calling him Myles Crosby because I've been talking about Myles Garrett. Maxx Crosby's got to think about his future because he's 28 years old. He's 29 next August, so he's only just turned 28. But does he really want to have many more seasons where the Raiders are just a hopeless top 5 selection team, not even in contention for the playoffs. He is a player who gives absolutely every ounce of energy every game. Does he want to put all that effort in, go through all of that for just losing season after losing season? They cycle through coaches. Look, there are fans and media already calling for Pete Carroll to go. Are they going to go through another regime change? To me, he must be getting to the point where, unless they turn this around, I mean, if they win the next 3 games before the deadline on November the 4th, then obviously it's a very different situation. But if they lose to the Titans, you've got to think, what happens then? Are they going to be thinking about, we may be open-minded about a trade here? And he is undoubtedly one of the few players that you could bring in to Seattle who could have a major impact. He is a stud. He is a top elite level pass rusher. He is somebody who can potentially win games with his impact. He's a fantastic personality and a leader. And when you look at the Seahawks, they are not getting enough sacks off the edge. He is somebody who you could bring in, and they are that close, the Seahawks, to being 5-0. Like if the defense makes plays at the end of the Niners game, or the offense finishes that drive at the end, that's a win. And then on Sunday against the Bucs, they could easily have won that game as well, because the defense was just really poor. You should not lose a game where your offense scores 5 consecutive touchdowns in offensive drives. So, an impact player like Maxx Crosby could easily have this team at 5-0 right now. So I think they are in a position where it calls for a level of aggression. And the reason why before the season began I was less keen on that kind of thing is because Sam Darnold had not played it down for Seattle yet. And you kind of think, okay, if he doesn't pan out, you need to keep your stock because you might need to do something about a quarterback, whether that's trade for a quarterback in the offseason or draft a quarterback or whatever that is. And I wasn't that keen on them, for example, going out and giving all their picks away from Micah Parsons for that reason. Now I think it's different. Sam Darnold is showing that he can potentially be a franchise quarterback for the Seahawks. He's playing at an unbelievable level. The offense looks great. It's not just Darnold, it's the receivers, the tight ends, the offensive line looks good, the running game's getting there. It's this defense that has surprisingly been the main worry. And look, they'll be okay when they get healthy again, but they could be elite with someone like Maxx Crosby on there. It's all speaking towards, that one aggressive move could be the thing that sort of takes you over the edge. And the NFL is wide open. The NFC was open anyway, but if you look at the AFC, Joe Burrow getting injured, Lamar Jackson and the rest of the Ravens getting injured. The Bills have just been beaten at home by the Patriots. The Chiefs are 2-3. The teams that you expect to just be there at the end are looking a bit shaky. We could see easily a couple of teams in the Super Bowl this year that nobody would have predicted a few weeks ago. So there's an opportunity there. And I'm not suggesting that if the Seahawks trade for Maxx Crosby, they're going to get to the Super Bowl. But there's no reason why, with the way the offense is playing, they can't at least have that discussion if they got into the playoffs. Can they go on a run? Can they beat a good team to get through a round or two of the playoffs? Maybe get to the NFC Championship. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility if you make a move like this. So I do think it is easier to consider a big, bold trade now than it was a few weeks ago. And then the other thing is, I've had a chance to study this draft class. And this might be the worst draft class that I've studied since starting Seahawks Draft Blog in 2008. It's not an exaggeration. It is looking really weak at the top end. Like, you've got some players who I can easily predict will go in round one, and you've got a handful who maybe deserve to go in that range. It's very hard to find legit top 10 picks. Very hard to find the players at premium positions who are going to fill the top 5. Very hard to find players who you could justifiably take in the first round. So I think this class calls for the good teams to be more aggressive. I would happily pay a first-round pick and a third-round pick for Maxx Crosby. You are going to have to give up more than that. It would have to be a pick in 2027 as well, and or a player. Whether Chenna Nwosu would be interested in reuniting with Pete Carroll, maybe. That's something that could be an add-on to the picks you'd have to give up. Maybe Reek Woolen, maybe Boya Mafe, a player plus picks kind of package for Maxx Crosby. I think it's worth considering. And then the other thing to think of is the Seahawks in the past have been loath to trade for players and then give them a new contract. It was something that was often discussed with the reason why they wouldn't trade for Trey Hendrickson, who was after a deal all year. They want to be able to bring those players into the building and then make a call before they pay them. No such issue with Maxx Crosby because of that new contract that he signed, which is affordable, by the way. He's contracted till 2029. So you haven't got to worry about that. I just think it all adds up to this is the guy the Seahawks should target. This is the guy that the Seahawks should be aggressive to go and acquire. This is the player who could just finish things off for this team. And you add a true blue chip pass rusher to this roster who is a fantastic leader, who will fit the personality of this franchise, plays the way that Mike McDonald wants. This could be the thing. Now, the Raiders, even with the structure of that contract and the losing record and everything that's happening, might still think we don't want to trade Maxx Crosby just yet. And it will be a hard sell to their fans to effectively trade him now because they are giving up on the season the minute that they do that. One more loss, though, against the Titans, and that maybe gets to a point where fans are saying it's time. It's time to get what you can for your assets, prepare for what the future is going to look like, a future that will not have people like Maxx Crosby necessarily at the forefront of everything. You're going to have to draft, a new raft of stars. You need as much stock as you can get. You need to get younger players in who are going to be the future. You've got to get your house in order in terms of who's going to coach and lead that future because Pete Carroll's 74. He's not a long-term solution and it's not going very well for him so far. So maybe they're not at that point yet. Maybe it will take all the way through to the end of October before they would consider doing something like this. That's when the trade deadline is. What I would say is if you trade him now, I think you're going to get more than if you trade him in the offseason. When it'll be 29 next year, sort of in that 29th year as opposed to 28. Trading for him now, you're not just getting him for next season and 2 more seasons after that. You're getting him for the rest of this year as well. It just, to me, feels like if the Raiders lose like maybe 1 or 2 of the next 3 games, that becomes a possibility. And I don't think the Seahawks, people can talk about other players. No one is going to come in and do what Maxx Crosby can do. And, when you see the pass rusher, away that the Ravens traded to the Chargers yesterday, he's got no sacks for this season. Like adding another player like that isn't going to do anything. Like that's just bringing in a lesser quality version of Boya Mafe, essentially. What they really need is someone who's going to elevate things the way that Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones did. And like I said, having scoured through who might be available, I can't find anybody apart from Maxx Crosby. And that contract says he structured that deal and the Raiders structured that deal knowing that a trade was still on the table in the future. And that is the guy that I would go for. I would be big. I'd be bold. Go and try and acquire Maxx Crosby. I'm sure there will be a lot of teams interested. It will ramp up the price. I think it's worth it. I think the Seahawks are in a position now with their offense where making a bold defensive move like that is the way to go. And I don't think in that 2026 draft class, you are going to be able to draft a solution at pass rush or cornerback. Both positions, to me, look a little bit overrated based on what I'm seeing in the media. I just don't see the players. It's not a very attractive draft class in that regard. So you've got the cap space, you've got picks, you've got a good offense. For me, that's the player to go and target now. Go and get a deal done with the Raiders for Maxx Crosby the minute that they're open to trading him.